Hello, everyone, if you can hear me. We're going to give a couple minutes for everyone to log on here and get live with us. Should probably wave to you so you can see there's actually a person behind the camera, but we're going to wait till everyone gets on and joins live here. So in the meantime, why don't you watch this beautiful, fun disclaimer for our coaching tonight. All the legalese stuff, for those of you out there who have a practice, these are always good things to have and to do. If you have not submitted a question yet, I have a bunch of really, really good questions tonight to answer live. I'm going to be adding in the chat a link for anyone who would like to submit a last-minute question. These are anonymous. You are more than welcome to ask a question in the chat tonight. But this would be a fun way for you to be anonymous if you don't want anyone to see what your question is. So, hello there, Nick. Hello, Joanne. So there is a form there. You can fill out a question if you would like, and I would be happy to answer it on live tonight. Just wait a couple more minutes for everyone to join. Get yourselves comfortable. I would say as you're here, I want to know what you do. Are you a healer? Are you here because you're curious and you want to know what a light leader is? Share in the chat. I want to see that chat light up to see what you guys are up to. What are you doing? Who are you? And if you're just curious and shy and you want to stay in the corner and just watch, of course, you can do that too. That's the best thing about these live events. Teacher. Hey, Corby. Hi, Tiffany, Christy. Reiki 2 healer. Awesome, awesome. Corby is a light leader. For sure, girl. We're going to talk about that. Whew. Mimi, hello. Hi, Mimi. Yeah, tell everyone what you guys do if you're interested in sharing that. Be curious how many of you identify as a healer. And of course, some of you are going, I don't know what the heck a light leader is. I don't know what she's talking about here. We'll be talking about that in a little bit. I can totally take this banner off. It just seems rude to me for me to be sharing and doing all these fun things on my phone. It's almost like texting when you're at dinner with someone. Hi, I'm going to be texting and messaging for sharing some of these live streams feeds we need to share to some of our groups so people can join. We had a lot of interest in this group, and I'm really this live stream. So I'm really intrigued and fascinated that there is this many people interested in this topic. Of course, hopefully you're not sitting on the edge of your seat. I'll be entertaining, but it's going to be very educational tonight. One of my pet peeves when I go on and watch someone else live, if they're sitting there on their phones and they're doing the sharing, I'm always sitting there like, come on, get started. Why are we waiting around here? But of course, there's purposes for that. So welcome to the Path to Light Leadership. This is an interesting topic that I was called to talk about actually a couple months ago now. And it's been on my heart as a healer and as a business owner to really connect with my community of healers, no matter where you're located at, and to share some information, as well as for people out there that feel that they're here to help the world at this time. They recognize or label themselves as a healer in some capacity, and maybe they're struggling. because I think there are a lot of different paths that we're following, and the state of the world is very interesting and curious at this time. So I think that this is why we're here. I am a product of the age of growing up with Mr. Rogers, Care Bears, and Captain Planet. So what you have is an idealist dreamer, intuitive professional here who loves to come together with community. I love to inspire. I love to uplift. And I have this, of course, dream, this passion, this knowing that I'm here to help the world. So when the term light leadership came to me, it was one of those things that, as an intuitive, I'm clairvoyant. So I see a particular color and particular energy around individuals who are healers, maybe not necessarily in the healing craft, maybe they're artists or musicians. But when someone carries what I call a light leadership aura, it looks a very particular way. It is full spectrum in color, including the full range of colors. A lot of people in the healing community have a lot of green and maybe a lot of purple energy, but they don't have a full spectrum of color in their field. But those who are looking to deepen their journey and deepen their self-awareness absolutely can activate that. So it was very interesting when I had this call to talk about light leadership, and I had this very strong knowing that people on the planet right now who have felt called their whole life to help the world are being activated. And what I mean by activated is this call on your heart, this passion, this drive, this motivation is gotten stronger, or you've been in this space where you're really a healer who's trying to step into light leadership and you're really bogged down by the energy right now. You're overwhelmed, you're tired, and it's time to step into this light leadership. It's an up level to your healing background. So I think for the definition's sake, I'm going to share some slides as well. And if you are live on Instagram, hopefully you can see the slides. I made them smaller so that they're square because we're in a world of squares on Instagram, as you all know. So what I would say defining a light leader is an individual who is dedicated to personal illumination. Now, that's a little bit different than a healer. A light leader can be a healer. They can also be a individual who is out there speaking truth. They can be in politics. They can be a teacher. They can be someone who is in construction. It can be anyone from across the whole board of people, but someone who's dedicated to their own personal illumination and self-actualization. And we have a lot of individuals out there who are having a spiritual awakening, who are feeling called to really look deeper within themselves and connect in a deeper way. But a lot of us who are healers may not consider ourselves a light leader. We may feel that we are called to do that, but we may not have stepped deeper into that position yet in our life. So we're going to talk about what it looks like to be a healer. And I want to just point out the difference because I wasn't someone that considered myself a leader ever. It's so funny when we talk about some of the definitions of the light leadership. We're going to talk, I have some bullet points here. But one of the things is light leaders don't really want to be leaders. They never really felt that they were one. They felt that they were here to kind of go on their own path and really seek the answers within. And all of a sudden you have people following you and you don't know why, because they feel that you have the answers. So that's really, really interesting. If you're someone who's very independent and you have people all of a sudden following you, it's one of those things where you're like, wait a minute, you have the answers within you. And that's kind of been how my journey has unfolded. But of course, I'm also a healer. And I started out as my call to action being a healer was, of course, an individual. Growing up, I was very highly intuitive and naturally knew what people needed when they were really having pain, emotional, physical, or whatnot. So I'm going to talk about the different types of healers. And I want you guys in the chat to share what type of healer you may be or you feel you are, because there are a lot of different types of healers. These are just some basic archetypes of healers. And I think it's really important, no matter where you are on your journey, even if you identify as a light leader, when I get into more definitions of that too, even if you identify as that, to consider where you've come from and consider where you're at right now as a healer. So what type of healer are you? So we have a very common one that we see in our community of healers is the wounded healer. if you are a wounded healer, you are someone that your original entry or your entry point into being a healer was really having some sort of wound happen to you. And this is something that I found it really interesting. 73.9% of counselors, of psychotherapists, are considered wounded healers. So basically, they are called to the healing path to become a healer by a wound that they experienced themselves. And a lot of times they're trying to help themselves. They're on their whole path. And this is very common. Now, when I'm talking about these different types of healers, I'm going to turn this off so you can see me. I'm serious that there's no wrong path. As a light leader, you'll learn later that we're about neutrality, and it's not about right or wrong or good or bad. These are all these different flavors and costumes and personas and action steps that we take, our paths we take as healers. So there's no bad thing. I think the wounded healers, sometimes people don't want to even recognize that that's part of who they are because they think it's something that's negative. But it's basically you really are trying to heal yourself by healing others, and something originally wounded you. We also have a caregiver or a nurse. So these are people, I'm not one of these actually. This is one of the people that come and give you food when you're sick. They like to maybe take care of wounds, or if you're experiencing cuts or bruises, or they're the people that bathe other people when they're unable to do so for themselves. If you are a caregiver or a nurse, you're someone who's really called to help and nurture other people, and it really fills up your cup. You are just elated to be able to do that for other people. A lot of times there is an aspect of the caregiver and that nurse personality type that a lot of times they do it to avoid loneliness, because one of the things is if you don't nurture, if you don't have a place to nurture or to give that love or care, you can feel like you have an identity loss. I know a family member of mine is going through this right now. They've identified as a nurturer and a caretaker their whole life. And they're really having a hard time with that because they don't have anyone to nurture. They, even put down with their animals. That was their last child that they were able to take care of. And that can be very challenging. So the therapist is the next one. So that's someone who, if you are someone that likes to understand and solve problems, and you feel called to help with the mind and the body, that's the type of healer you would be. That's obvious, okay? Right? You could be a hypnotherapist or something like that, someone who's working with meditation. So it doesn't have to necessarily be a counselor or a therapist, but coaches and meditation instructors and people who are working with the mind and body usually fall in that category. A spiritual healer is someone who's really called, from a healing perspective, they're maybe nuns or priests, or they may be people who are monks. And these are people, if you feel called to heal through a path that's related to some sort of spiritual philosophy. And if you're adhering to that as a healer, that would be a spiritual type of healer. Another one is the intuitive healer. So that's one of mine. I always, again, just knew intuitively what someone needed for healing. And it's something that you don't know how you know, but you know. And you may not have the training, but you have understand that they need this, this, or this. I know that growing up, I kind of freaked people out because I guess it's considered medical intuition. I don't say that I practice that, but because people need to know what that means. Medical intuitive, they've heard of it because the medical medium. But it's something where I just know, I feel it in the body, I see. And then, of course, I'm getting information for what that person needs. And not just for healing in a sake of the physical body, but I also do that with people in just their energy field in general, when it comes to their business, when it comes to what's blocking them. So that's really where my gift and my skill set has developed, because it is a skill set that I worked on developing. It's naturally a gift, but it does need take some work. So the shadow healer is something that I'm to be curious if anyone has ever heard of a shadow healer. I think that's a really interesting one. Shadow healers are people that don't really take care of themselves. They're the people that are so worn out. And honestly, this has been like 6 years of my journey being a healer, was really being a shadow healer, but not necessarily. It was kind of one of those things where it sideswiped me because it didn't feel like it was me not taking care of myself. it was me feeling like circumstantially I wasn't able to set boundaries with my time and as a business owner. With a really booming practice, a wellness clinic that I run, there was way too much going on that I was seeing a lot of clients as well as running all the administrative. So that was where my shadow healer came out a little bit, where I wasn't able to take as good care of myself as needed. But again, I want to remind you that these terms are actually not bad or negative. Like they basically gave me some amazing lessons to how to take care of myself, learning how to nurture myself, what tools, techniques, how often, and what kind of healing or treatments or self-care did I need. So that was a really nice journey, walking through that shadow healer aspect for part of my journey. Now, the shadow healer aspect does come up. I think that's the number one thing I see. In our community, I see a lot of people who are not taking care of themselves. They're like martyrs, they overgive, and then of course they really burn out. They're unable to continue to give. And of course with the pandemic, we've had so much of that. And then of course we have the charlatan. Okay, so 2011, I remember knowing that we were going to have a huge influx of people having their spiritual awakening, becoming more aware intuitively or as healers. And I knew Reiki was going to take off. I knew it was going to be one of those things where it became oversaturated, which it is now. I had a feeling that we were going to become, anything metaphysical was going to be very, very mainstream. And of course, with TikTok, which is everything, people are selling crystals everywhere. And I knew that when this happened, we'd have charlatans. Part of my wound as a healer was actually having a professional that was spiritual bypassing. This is a really great question that someone asked me. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But someone that wasn't practicing professionally or ethically, and I was deeply, I was hurt by that. I was basically got a really poor intuitive professional that was coaching me. They were very dismissive and not kind and not mindful with their speech. They were putting me down. They were someone that really didn't have a good professionalism or ethics or background. And of course, when you're in new spaces of your spiritual awakening, a lot of times you're very naive and you don't have awareness or discernment. And that was part of my lesson walking that path. But I know that what that has given me in value in my own personal practice is I'm really particular about the type of people that I work with on a professional level. When I go see a coach, because I think it's always important to always see someone, whether it's a body worker, a coach, a therapist, to continue to do your own work. But I'm also very particular with who works with me at my center. There's been a lot of really interesting, curious situations that so many of my clients have had working with people that they've just had straight up just weird stuff. Like, you've got to buy this healing crystal for $3,000 because you have a curse on your family. And I know some of you who are listening, I know we've had conversations about this and we've seen so much of this. And it was really concerning to me because I knew once 2020 hit and COVID hit, whenever there's a global disruption and any time in history when there's something really big that happens where there's chaos, that's when the seedy underbelly of the spiritual community comes out, or people selling snake oil or things like that. And I'm like, well, everyone's going to get to learn discernment today. That's part of our lessons. It's not necessarily bad, but it was concerning for me because I said, I know that a lot of you out there who are practicing professionally and ethically, and maybe you out there are not professionals yourself, but you're learning to discern, you're maybe jumping into this holistic health and wellness bubble, and you're going, who do I choose to go to? There's so many people. So that's a whole other topic, but I know that I knew there would be confusion. There would be a lot of noise, which we have, and some people who were really highly professional and ethical would be the ones to show the way. And that's also part of being a light leader. So yes. So anyway, I'd love if you guys have any share in the chat too. I'd love to see if you guys resonate with any of those particular archetypes of the healer, because I think it's really curious. And even if you're a shadow healer and don't take care of yourself, it's really okay. It's really okay. That's why we're here tonight too, to support each other. Now, even if you're not a healer professionally, and you don't feel like you are getting paid for what you do. Maybe you're someone that's always there for your friends. You are still considered a healer. Now, I think that when we grow as a healer, there's different stages that we go through. And those stages are, of course, like number one, you really feel or hear that call to help in some capacity. It may be something as simple as starting a widows group or doing something at your church. You may not be getting paid for it, but you're called to help in some way. Maybe you're helping at a soup kitchen, or maybe you are someone that has gone through a near-death experience. You've gone through cancer, or maybe you healed chronic pain with some sort of holistic modality. Whatever it is, you hear that call, something in your life changes and shifts, and you become a healer. And you decide, oh my gosh, this is what I'm called to do. During that stage, of course, you are really finding about what type of healing you offer. And that could be a specific modality in the way that you are able to offer it. And that's when you find your teachers and you really learn your craft. And then, of course, practice. So a lot of you guys are out there probably practicing what you are, your modalities, and maybe even still continuing to learn. And number 4 is the one that I think a lot of people get stuck on. Number 4 and number 5. This is a particular question that I had that I'm going to answer directly, but I'm going to brush on it just here. Finding your worth. There are way too many people in the healing profession that are not charging what they're worth. And even if they don't need to charge money, they're not having an equal exchange, because there's many people that have a full-time job, and it's okay for you to offer Reiki or offer readings or whatever it is on the side for free to your friends. And you're not doing it necessarily professionally or whatever you do. Unless you need a license, of course, it's not okay to do that. But I think that we as healers undervalue ourselves. And this is something that we, of course, learn as we grow. We learn not only about how to have boundaries, we learn about how to say no. We learn about what type of exchange is comfortable for us, not just on an energetic level, but also just policies, procedures, and how we like to operate in our life, even in exchanges in relationships with our family and maybe even our clients or our community. When we know our value and we know what's okay with us and what's not, we're able to set very firm boundaries with what's okay and what's not. And that's, of course, when we're able to receive in a way that's equal to what we're asking, what we need back. So that could be as simple as, my time is valuable. So if I'm going to be spending time with a particular person, I need them to at least be meeting me where they're I need to meet them where they're at, but I need them to at least be 100% committed to working with me. That type of thing. I think a lot of healers really do get stuck on that. Finding your worth, I think, and again, I think if you have any questions about this in the comment box, I think if you're having a hard time charging for what you do, or even a hard time feeling valued, even if you don't do this professionally, you're feeling valued as a nurturer or as a nurse or as a helper or even as a teacher, this is a really big thing. Can you imagine if all the healers and helpers in the world right now knew what their worth was and stood up and claimed it? Now, I'm not talking just not necessarily financially. So I know so many people in the healing community have a lot of issues with money. It's a big wound. These are the things you don't talk about: sex, money, politics, religions. Big triggers for everyone. We got big wounds with those things. So money, we don't have to even talk about value in just terms of money. If that's too uncomfortable for you, we need to talk about, where are you able to accept your value, and where are you able to even know what that looks like and what that is. So that's something I think that is really important as you grow. So a lot of people kind of get stuck in that, where they feel like they're not seeing enough clients, or they're not charging enough, or they're helping too much. And then we get signs of imbalance. And then healing the healer. So that's one of the things I don't see all the time. A lot of people are in the healing business or in that role, and they're helping everyone else around them, but not helping themselves. So that's a big difference between a healer and a light leader. So a light leader is really dedicated to helping themselves and to knowing that they can heal the world through healing themselves. This is also called, you might have heard it called an enlightened healer. That's another terminology that might be similar to that. But I'm going to go over some signs of imbalance as a healer. And I want you guys to you can thumbs up if you don't want to share which one you experienced, but I know all of you have experienced this at some point in your life or not. Signs of a healer imbalances are having low energy, feeling tired, maybe feeling angry or frustrated, or even growing resentment toward maybe not receiving your value or whatever's going on with that. Equal exchange is a big thing. If you're experiencing health issues, empath overload, this is something that I do have issues with. I am an empath. I am a hypersensitive empath and intuitive. And I have issues with people giving away their power as empaths, saying, I'm too sensitive, I can't do this. I can't go here. I get overwhelmed. I have issues with that because I know that through my own journey, there's ways to really work with that. And I know that we have people out in the online community that claim that if you're an empath, you're going to be sensitive for the rest of your life and that you just have to deal with it. And that's actually a sign of an imbalanced healer. That's really, really important to note, because I think so many people they're self-professed empaths, and you don't have to be on all the time. You don't have to be absorbing energy all the time. It's just a part of the awakening process or growth as a healer of learning how to manage your energy field. So I think that's really important. I feel very passionate about speaking up against that, because I don't want people to continue to feel powerless to that. If you have resource or money issues, so if you're struggling with making bills, you're struggling with managing your time, or even your resources, or even attracting people to basically fill your book, that can absolutely be a sign of an imbalance as a healer, especially if you have shame, or if there is guilt or any sort of negative programming around money, and even around time management, and even just boundaries in general. That's a really, really common one for healers. Boundaries and free spirits. Us, healers, we're free spirits a lot of the time. They don't always go well together, but it's really important to really look at that if you're having that sign of imbalance. If you are experiencing sabotage or procrastination, and that is a really interesting sign of imbalance. I've dealt with that for 10 years. It took me 10 years for myself to do some of this online stuff, because I had a lot of issues with speaking up and being seen, because as a light leader, I don't really want to be seen in some capacities. I want to work on my own self, heal myself, but I know I was being called, especially to do this, that there is so much information and knowledge and wisdom that I know that I've learned, that I have to just suck it up and let my ego go and say, I don't care. I got to tell these people what I have to share. It's information that I think is really helpful. And the more I can help you guys as healers, the more you guys can go help the world. If you have clients canceling and being flaky, that's a really interesting sign of imbalance. Again, I've worked with healers over the last 10 years running a holistic wellness center. I've seen the ins and the outs and the ups and the downs and the energy imbalances and what commonly happens. And flaky clients and having them cancel is a very interesting sign of either an energy balance in you or something going on in the work environment that you're working in. It may be something that's just a fluke thing if it's just 1 or 2 days and it's not a consistent pattern. But if it's consistent, there's something to look at there. If your work is not as effective as before, maybe your modality or something like that, that's absolutely a sign of an imbalance. If you are in competition or lack attack mode, where you feel like there's not enough, there's way too many Reiki healers, there's way too many this, I'm never going to be able to make it, I have to compete against them. And that is straight up toxic. Straight up toxic. I talk about this so much, and I feel like I'm an Aries, so I'm really fiery, and I can come off like I'm really super competitive. I'm really competitive against myself. I have a Capricorn moon, anybody who knows astrology out there, and basically I want to always become a better version of myself. So if there's any competition within me that anyone ever sees or projects back on me, it's really my own self against myself. But when it comes to the healing community and business, is straight up toxic. We need to really look at this and look at, where do we feel a lack of self-worth in what we do? Where do we feel this lack? Where have we been told and taught by our community, our culture, that there's too much or not enough, and then you're not going to make it? Because don't you think there's an interesting reason why all of a sudden so many people are having spiritual awakenings and having these crazy either identity crisis, or they're having health issues because of what's going on in the world over the last 10 years. And all of a sudden, so many people have an interest in the healing profession or are being called to it. There's not enough people right now to help everyone. If everyone today woke up and realized they need to see a healing professional, we need to have a whole bunch of us right now. So the competition and the lack attack needs to go. Get rid of that if you have it. And then if you are fed up with being a healer, honestly, I had a little bit of that. I was fed up with being a healer because I felt that I wasn't really fitting in as a healer. I always felt like I did things very differently. And this is, of course, where light leadership came in. I never understood working with other healers why some of the continued patterns that really perpetuate them not being able to make enough money to be able to help people. Because you imagine if you guys were fully rich and resourced or whatever, even if you just need a house and a car and you're fine and you don't make a lot of money, but if you fully have everything you need, how many more people could you help? So that always confused me. And I always was I never understood that. But also the way that I do things as a healer is very different. I feel that as a light leader, it's my job to heal myself. It's my job, not really for the world, but just for myself. And in the walking the path of healing myself across many different dimensions, in physical health, emotional health, spiritual health, all the things, right? I saw such a difference in my life, in my business, especially in my business. And it always confused me why people would always really get these blocks and not be able to see that there is something they're not looking at or something they're not wanting to change. And the biggest thing about that I find interesting is people didn't reach out for help. A lot of us healers suffer behind closed doors. We don't reach out to a professional or someone to help us. And that was something that was really startling to me and challenging, because I could see so many individuals that could have an amazing helper, whether it was me or somebody else out there, and they weren't reaching out for that help. So those are the 10 signs of healers' imbalances. I'd love to see if you guys have any of those. Caregiver, therapist. Yes, I can see that, Tiffany. Yes. Oh, thank you, Janet. You're so kind. Yeah, boundaries. Oh my gosh. So this amazing woman, Corby Mitlide, she, honestly, I have to just riff on you a little bit, Corby, I hope that's okay. She actually really taught me an important lesson about boundaries. So when I was a new reader, I used to get psychic headaches doing vending events. And I didn't know how to turn off my psychic gift at the very beginning. I didn't know how to turn it off, right? I had turned it off earlier in my teenage years because I was medicated. That's part of my journey, of my healing journey, is being medicated, told you were crazy for seeing spirits, and then, it gets shut off. So when I got off my medications, my gift came back. But I was doing psychic fairs after I had done some training with some professionals. I was ready to really get into this work. And I was sitting there going, I have a headache. I don't know how you handle this. And I was looking at her. I'm like, oh my gosh, she probably sees all the things about me, because she was someone that you've been in the profession for a very long time. So I deeply respect you and respected you back then as well. And I found it really interesting. She said, no, I just turned that off. I'm not on all the time. And of course, on my natural progression of my healing and my journey and growth as an intuitive practitioner, that was something I also learned to do as well. So boundaries, of course, are really, really important. I think that especially if you're working in the energy healing realm, or any healing profession, and also in the psychic realm, it's really, really important to do that. All right, let's talk more about light leadership, and then we'll go into some questions. All right, you are a light leader all right, you are someone that's really cynical or not feeling good about gurus. People out there that have a humongous following of people, and you're like, this doesn't feel right. And then there are, of course, really great teachers, and people have a great following of people. There's nothing wrong with that. But the age of guruism is over to you. If you're a light leader, that doesn't make sense to you. You're someone who is here to lead others through your own illumination, and you feel very passionate about that. As a light leader, you will really be passionate as well about neutrality and balance. And of course, in our own personal lives, there are certain situations that can become polarized, and we can, of course, we get emotional in our relationships sometimes. But we're here to really bring neutrality and curiosity. We look at life from a less judgmental viewpoint and a more broader viewpoint, and how things are from a zoomed out perspective. And I think that's really important, especially when it comes to the age of the age of illumination, really, when we have a lot of the metaphysical, spiritual based businesses and things coming to the forefront, when we have people who are scared about what we do or don't understand it, or there's immediate judgment about who we might be based on what we do. I think that's really, really challenging to be in that space when you have friends or family judging you, or people not understanding what you offer, or being quite downright afraid of it, or thinking that you're the devil or something like that, just because we are afraid of what we don't understand as human beings. And if you're operating from a place of neutrality and a place of curiosity and wonderment, and just kind of looking at things from, I wonder why that's that way. I wonder why they think that. And you can kind of get a lot more information about someone and learn about them by asking questions, instead of automatically not talk to them or stay away from them, or really you contribute to more polarization. Light leaders are really able to stand in the light and the dark, so to speak. So they're not necessarily afraid of things that are considered scary to the world. They're curious. They're like little children, like, what is that? But they have learned discernment. So they're little children with discernment. Say, that doesn't feel right, so I'm not going to maybe go in there, but I'm curious of what it might is and why doesn't it feel right? And figure that out so they can really know themselves a little bit deeper. Because the deeper you know yourself, the more you will deeply know and understand other people and the world. And that, of course, is a trait of the light leader, knowing thyself and the dedication to your own illumination. Balance is also very important to light leaders. So we're talking about balance between being very spiritually connected and being grounded, very grounded, that living in both the logical and the analytical side. So we're going to talk about spiritual bypassing, because that's a question that I was asked. I love the question. I don't know who asked it, but it was amazing. Because I think that's one thing that we do see in the healing community, where people are avoiding some of their own issues and maybe not seeing what's really going on. And that's a really big deal. Light leaders are here to cultivate power from within. And of course, in our structure, in our world right now, when we have a lot of misuse of power, how are we going to change that? Not through force, through neutrality and balance, and through showing the way, leading the way through our own actions. Because balance and quiet wisdom is a lot louder energetically at these times where everything else is chaotic. It is a calm stream, that's going through the tornado that really makes you look, because everything else is chaotic. And then you're going, wait, what is that over there? And that's really what the type of power I'm talking about that light leaders carry. I'm not talking about this overly fiery, passionate energy that I'm putting forth. That's just my Aries nature. But I'm talking about this calm, this centeredness, this ability to exude peace and love and neutrality, so that when you walk into a space, you are able to be felt and understood and acknowledged, and help other people without even having to say a word to them. Light leaders also know their own worth. You know your own value. You know your time is valuable. You know you are able to be a better help to the world when you're on full, when you're not empty, when you have enough income, when you have enough rest, when all those things. So when you know your own worth, it's a no-brainer to take care of yourself. If you don't understand and know your own worth, you won't even see how valuable you are as a light leader, to even recognize that you need to do those things, or you won't be able to help the world to the degree that you may feel called to in your spirit. And then, of course, light leaders value healthy boundaries and vulnerability. Both of them, both a healthy vulnerability and openness. My communication style is so open. I'm just an open book. Of course, I have things that if I'm not comfortable talking about them, I will just say so, and I'd be very direct. But healthy boundaries with that vulnerability are really important. I think that in a holistic business, there are so many people that struggle with setting boundaries, just as far as policy goes, as far as paperwork, as far as having your clients show up on time, maybe holding accountability for yourself when it comes to your own self boundaries of how much self-care you will you'll be involved in, or how much how well you're eating or things like that. And I think that's a really, really important thing. Light leaders, again, I think are really dedicated, again, their own illumination, but this is not just a mental, spiritual illumination. We're talking about the physical body as too. So balance between the upper chakras and the lower chakras. This is about getting fully anchored in the body. So I like to explain it like this. I've met a lot of people in the spiritual community. This was me 10, 20 years ago, where I was not in my body. I was one big, ball of energy walking around and not anchored and not able to be in the physical world, the third dimension, so to speak, and understand money and resources and boundaries and why do people have, organized situations, why I don't want to be a free spirit. There's a big trigger there for people who don't want to really be involved in boundaries and organization and structure. Structure scares people, but structure and the physical third dimensional world, just being in the present, in the now, in your physical body and anchored, for some people, especially who are very sensitive psychically or intuitively or empaths, being physically grounded and present in the physical body is the only safe place to be right now, because then you're not being influenced by the cosmic energy of the sun or the Schumann resonance, or some people are affected by the emotional, toxicity of their friends or their family that lives in their house or whatever's going on social media wise. Being anchored in your physical body and being balanced between being spiritually connected and grounded is really, really important. That's like one of the things I work with the most with people who are struggling to really run their business, because it really relates around relationships and money and just the physical structure. That's really what we're missing. If it's almost like you're running around without legs. You're trying to do things without legs. You can do a lot more things and climb a lot more mountains if you have legs, energetically speaking. So I hope that makes sense. And before we go into some questions, I'm going to talk about why I really want to see more people stepping into light leadership. I'm really sad to see a lot of my fellow healers are struggling. I also struggled myself as well, but I also know that we all have a journey that we're taking. There's no wrong way. When I see someone struggling, I'm like, I feel sad, but then I also acknowledge at the same time these dualistic, beyond dualism, this neutral thinking of, well, that's sad, but I know that they're learning something on their journey. And when they're ready and they see their own value, see their own worth, the teacher will come, or they'll up level. They'll do whatever it takes for them to really shine their gifts in a bigger way. And bigger way doesn't mean necessarily being seen on social media or becoming a movie star, but being able to help more people, or whatever your particular goals are. Maybe it's not more people, maybe it's a specific niche or type of people you want to help. So why I believe everyone can be, if you're called as a healer, why I think that it's really important to step into more light leadership, where you're leading through your own internal voice, your own intuition. You are, of course, get answers from other people, but they're more so answers that you've asked on your own. So when I need an answer for a health question for my own personal life, I'll ask the question and I'll get an area in my body of what it might relate to, maybe emotionally what's going on. You can, of course, do that through connecting deeper to your intuition, through journaling or meditation. But when I get a little bit of a hit about what it is that I need to work on or what's actually going on, then all of a sudden another teacher or a healer or a YouTube video or a podcast or something will also come along. Ask and you shall receive. So as a healer and a light leader, when you ask your own higher power, your source, whatever it is, for the directions, for those breadcrumbs to follow, they will be given to you. But as long as you are able to stay in your own value and know that you are worth every ounce of energy that you carry within your light body. When you are fully activated, you're able to really stay grounded and also fully illuminated. You're able to walk into a space and be intuitively connected, but also be grounded so that if it gets overwhelming for you, it doesn't really shake you too much. And I think as a light leader, it's important for us to be able to show the way to others, but not show them what their exact way is. There is a lot of discernment that is happening right now where people are learning who to trust, what to do, what's not okay, even within our own personal lives. It's been a lot of, how do I make a decision for my own personal health with what's going on in the world? How do I discern how to talk to people and set boundaries with people that maybe don't agree with me? There's been a lot of really great lessons of discernment and how do we speak up as healers and as people in general. But if we know what our own value is, we know our worth, then we're able to set those boundaries and step into more of a light leadership role. And I think the most important thing I'd like to see is I'd like to see us healers really let go of powerlessness and to use our own internal compass, our own internal GPS to really learn to heal ourselves. Physician, heal thyself. Healer, heal thyself. That's really the main thing that I think in the healing community. If you don't have that, you're not really actively doing that. You're a healer. There's nothing wrong with that, but you're not a light leader. Light leaders will really start to change and shift the world around them and affect deeper change just by being who they are. And what's really interesting, as I kind of stepped into this term light leadership, I found that I was really doing a lot of my own healing for the last 15 years. I'm all about that. And I started to notice that more people projected upon me about maybe particular things that they thought I was or was not. And that's really something that, as a light leader, if you step into this role, you have to have a really thick skin. You have to have a really strong self-esteem and self-worth and know who you are and not to be easily swayed or influenced by other people and what they think. Because we're here to kind of be pioneers and lead the way. And I know 10 years ago when I said some of the things that was going to happen, I find it really funny. I think I was reading today. What was I reading today? Actually in here. I was funny because I opened this old journal to write down and I was thinking, this is really interesting that this happened 10 years ago, but no one could hear me. No one could hear me. A lot of times light leaders are so ahead of what really is happening. People aren't able to perceive it. And that's always happened throughout history. Like the earth is really round. It's not flat. There were people that didn't believe those people. And that's something that you have to have a thick skin and know who you are and understand that you're here to lead the way and to pave that for other people. You may see and you perceive the world from a very different offbeat perspective. And that happens when you as a light leader really let go of your baggage, let go of your identity points. When you identify as a victim or you identify as a mother or a child or a spouse or whatever you identify as, releasing your baggage or your identity points, still, of course, having, have a solid space of who you are, but you're not fully solidified into one particular identity. You are always growing and changing and learning. And I think also what happens with as light leaders, we really have this, as healers, we have this baggage, this really heavy burden of, I'm here to heal the world. And if I wasn't here, the world maybe wouldn't be healed as much, or I have this mission that I need to heal the world. And if I don't do it, I might fail. Then the world's going to go to shit. Excuse my language. But that's a really heavy burden. And I think that when you're at a certain point in your healing journey as a healer, you get tired of believing that because the world is going to move on and be rotating whether you heal or help other people or not. And I think as a light leader, one of the things that I value is knowing that the world is exactly the way it needs to be. And that's really hard for us. This is a broader, bigger perspective that not all of us are able to see. And it's really something that was taught to me silly enough, it was by Christ. I had an experience maybe a decade ago. I was at a chiropractic convention and I used to work for chiropractors. And I was in my dream space and I had this really strong vision of Christ, and he was sitting there and there was a massage table there and there was someone laying on the table, and he said to me, "You're going to heal this person." And I couldn't look at him. It was a really intense, visceral body experience in my dream of feeling the presence of what do you want to call Christ consciousness or Jesus. It was absolutely so bright. I couldn't look at him in the eyes and I was crying. This was like a very, very intense spiritual experience for me. And he said, "You're going to heal this person." I said, "I'm going to heal this person?" And he said, "Yes." He said, "Too many humans focus on what's wrong. The focus that the world is wrong, that something's wrong in someone, instead of focusing on what's right and seeing that the wholeness that already exists within the person, within the world." And he said, "Pray with me." He said, "Father, make me whole. Father, make them whole. Father, make them see that they are whole." And it was just this echoing prayer. And later on, I learned with studying some of Cindy Dale's work, her 4 Paths to Healing is a really great advanced chakra healing book, courses she has as well, talking about the 4 different ways that we heal. And one of them is really about this same concept of knowing that everything's already healed. Can you imagine how light it would feel for you to just let go of this burden that you need to heal the world? And if you don't, then it's going to die, or the planet is dying, or the animals. Like, there can still be a draw and a calling to help. If you change that identity point and shift that baggage, you're still going to want to help people. So some people fear if they let that go, they might not have a desire to help anymore. But it does take this heavy, anxious burden off that it's up to you, or if you don't do it, you'll feel guilt forever and ever and ever. So I think that's another reason to step into light leadership as a healer, to really level up into that space. And then also to receive your value. I want every person on this planet, when they're ready, to step into their value, because there's so many people that do not want to do that. Because it's hard. It's hard to really look at the places that you don't value yourself and then take responsibility and hold yourself accountable for stepping into that and showing yourself more value by the way you treat yourself, the way you talk to yourself, the way you eat, the way you ask for what you are worth in your private sessions or in your business and all that stuff. So I think knowing your value creates so much more freedom. And again, you attract the exact clients you want to work with. This is something I've done for the last 3 years. My schedule significantly decreased in availability, but I was seeing like 20, 30 clients a week, and I was booked out for like 3 or 4 months. And now I'm booked out for the rest of the year. I don't book out further because I don't open my schedule up, because I like the next one, which is the sense of freedom. The last one, I'm sorry. I really like to have more freedom in my life and to really feel what Spirit's calling me to do. Trusting myself. Again, I don't have any gurus. I don't really adhere to this powerlessness thing. I really look into leading myself and listening to the messages from other people that I get directly from source, that come through others, come through other teachers, come through books. But it all is really pointing back to me needing to do the healing work for myself to affect deeper change in the world, to continue to not allow baggage to sit on my back, and to really continue to receive my value, and to also coach other people I work with for them to step into their value as well. And then, of course, I love this deflecting from drama and polarization. I don't really play that game anymore. I think that's boring. Not that it's bad. Like, I like a good drama movie. I like drama and I like music. I like using that energy that's like this intense moving of uplifting your blood pressure a little bit. I like that in entertainment, but not in personal or political or world drama. It's still existing out there, but I'm able to deflect it a lot better and be able to exist in a neutral space. So I'm not contributing to polarity, but still continuing to maintain my boundaries. And then it's good to experience more freedom. I think that's really, really important for all of us. So now to the questions. Oh, I love that, Veda. She's saying, and some of you might be on different platforms and may not be able to see all of these posts. But I'm going to read this one. Her partner is very happy that he has set more boundaries mentally and physically, and everything has come together. He has stopped overthinking and he's more grounded. Absolutely. So if you out there, again, whatever your business is, because I know that they, this particular person, they have amazing, the sign out front of Firefly Hollow, they did our sign. So they have a graphic design business. But I think that it's really important to really know what your value is and your worth and set the boundaries, because then you attract a bigger, better business clientele, or ones that mesh with you better, ones that are in alignment with who you are and what you want to help and all that kind of thing. Corby says, it's also important if you are older to accept that you may not see the end of the effort to change the world. Absolutely. 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 Yeah. She says, sometimes you get to walk into the promised land and sometimes you're Moses and you just have to accept that your work was needed. I love that. And I believe that heaven is a place on earth. I believe it is. It's just in the present moment. I'm actually sitting in a basement right now. It's kind of, I don't know, dingy down here. I wanted to be in here because I have my sister's visiting. So there was cats in my regular office space and everything. So I'll come down here, but this is a really great place to be. I'm safe. I'm feeling happy because I'm talking to you guys and helping you. But I think that we expect something. We expect the healing journey to lead us to a destination instead of understanding that there is not necessarily any particular destination. And if we have that expectation, we're going to be disappointed. So, all right. So the questions I'm going to put up here, and I'll go back and read some more of the other comments here. The first question, this is such a good question. What are my thoughts on spiritual bypassing in the community? I'm going to read the full question actually here. Oh, I got another question too. Okay. I'd like to hear your thoughts on spiritual bypassing and its real perceived impacts in spiritual wellness practice. Love and light is a beautiful ideology, but it does seem it's being overused or inappropriately used at times in our community. How can we better articulate the desire to practice in a loving manner with the highest ethics, but still remain grounded with clients who may have trauma or mental illnesses that spiritual bypass type feedback could exacerbate or cause serious harm to? I've actually discussed this with my therapist and I'm educated on it and I have concerns about it. Yeah. I think that, oh, here's another one too. I'm sorry, there's another question there. Ooh. I'm going to answer that question first. This is something that I saw that was going to happen, and it's kind of frustrating, but at the same time, people have to learn their discernment. All we can do is to educate about what that term means. We can educate our clients about it, and we can do our best to really not do that ourselves. Again, the world around us is going to be a reflection of what we're embodying in ourselves. Our business is also a reflection of who we are. And that's why whenever you go into a business, you just, if it feels good to you and it's in alignment, then you can get an idea of who's running in the management and who's really behind the scenes for that business, because the energy reflection of that business is based on who leads it. So I think when it comes to spiritual bypassing, we can educate. Social media is a really great place to educate as much as possible. And when it comes to working with people who are struggling with that, this is different for different modalities, but for energy healing perspectives, I would definitely be, and again, all these answers are going to be generalized because everyone is very individual. So if I had a client that was dealing with this, I would, in my very presence, become very grounded, because I know that we can energetically entrain other people. So I would become very grounded in working with them. If I was doing Reiki, I would be very, very, very grounded. Any sort of energy healing work, I would probably not have them do a lot of talking, because sometimes that can, of course, keep them spiraling or in their head and not in their physical body. Those type of people really, if they've been through trauma, it is doing some sort of modality that helps heal the brain. Physiologically, the amygdala and all the overactive response that we have that we sometimes can't get out of that loop when we have been through trauma or mental illness. Of course, there's chemical imbalances that can be involved there. So diet and substances and all those things are so included, but it's so complex. But I would absolutely say that the best thing that we can do is continue to hold ourselves in the highest integrity and ethics and share information. We can even, sometimes it's easier from a third party to, either you have a handout that has maybe multiple things on it, or maybe a video that you could share, or a video playlist, maybe make a YouTube playlist of people that you respect that have really good information, or you want make one yourself. Then you can share to your clients in a roundabout way that maybe they can see, maybe they have the information to that this is spiritual bypassing. Now, if it's, of course, getting to a point where they're crossing boundaries and really is bleeding into beyond your scope of practice, absolutely practice with a friend or accountability partner to how you would approach that person to be able to set that boundary with those. Next question is, how do you set a boundary as an energy healer with your scope of practice? I don't have my intuition refined enough to necessarily see visuals or receive messages, but I can physically feel where there are energy blockages or just know where there's an imbalance. I think sometimes people often assume just because I practice energy healing that I'm also a medium. Very, very good question. So if you are practicing any sort of energy healing practice, even if you are a reader, you can, of course, have a disclaimer that you have on your paperwork. And I verbally would share that with people and set an expectation up front. I usually sit down with people and say, this is how I work. This is what I do. This is what I do not do. That way they have a clear understanding and expectation of what's going to happen in the session. I think a lot of people, when they get energy work from someone, they want to go, what did you feel? Did you feel something wrong with my chakras? Are they blocked? And a lot of times that gives people a complex too. When you say that they have negative energy here or you have dark energy here. We have to be very, very mindful with what words we use, because it can really mess with people when they don't have a firm understanding of really how energy works. And it's neutral. It's not necessarily has to be polarized. Now we may experience it that way when we're baby healers. We don't understand that sometimes heavy or negative energy isn't necessarily heavy or negative. It can be a lot of different things, and it's about curiosity, neutrality. That's how you actually learn a lot more. I have a little bit of a background and feeling. Part of my background is overcompensating for things I don't know when I was really early on. And I got to this point where I'm like, if I don't know what it is, I tell people. I have the confidence and self-esteem and value to say, if I don't know it, I don't have to overcompensate and pretend and go beyond my scope in any sort of way. I can just say, I don't really know the answer to that, but let me help you find someone who will. And I think that's really important, because not only it gains more respect from your client towards you, but also you can have firm boundaries with your scope of practice and not get any legal trouble, and ideally help the client more, which is always about the client. So I hope that answered your question. And again, any of these questions, if they might be too much for the to answer live, I do suggest doing a consult call with me to see if working with me in a professional setting would be helpful for you, because sometimes these are a little bit more in depth. Well, this question in particular is a little more in depth. So I'm working on starting my practice and can use some pointers on logistics, finding a place of practice, insurance needs as a spiritual coach or energy healer. So I have a course called Energy Medicine for Professionals. And that one is a course that I will connect you with. Please connect with me and we will chat via the text messages or whatever, and we can email, and I can call you if you need and find out exactly what you're looking for, whether a coaching session would be better for you, or if that course is something that you're looking for. Because there are so many things, depending on who you are and what you're looking for. Place of practice, whether it's an employment situation or rental situation, subcontractor situation, insurance definitely needs to be, there's different places you can get insurance depending on what else you also offer in your spiritual practice. So there's a lot of things it's a very in-depth question. So sorry I couldn't answer it in a deeper way. And then the next question here is my favorite one. Oh my gosh, I really like this one. Let me just go to the comments, make sure anybody had questions about those things. Very good, Veda. Yeah, she's not afraid of her gift. She's talking about that. And healers do tend to take on other people's illnesses or personalities. It's really, really important that we understand who we are, and we can always come back to that and understand our set point. I know I was usually have my place when I'm done with my sessions for the day, that I go recollect myself. And it's been a little interesting for me, actually. I felt like I always had it down. Like I have all this, I have my energy management skills. I teach this. I have a program about how to do this, and this is Mind Body Detox program that I do. And it was so funny because my sister came to visit, and she's from Michigan, and she's staying in the place where I usually gather myself. And I kind of had to find another way to do that. And I can do it no matter where I'm at, but it's fun for me to do a clearing and have like a ritual for myself after my end of my day. So it's really important, because I think a lot of very connected, especially psychic people, struggle with mental illness because their energy's split. Sometimes they have other energies involved, other people, other personality stuff intertwining there. And they really struggle with coming back to themselves and being anchored and grounded. That's the biggest thing that I think that happens. Okay, so that last question I think is like one of my most passionate about. Thank you for this. I'm going to actually read this in its entirety because I think it's really, really important. The question is paraphrased there. It's, how do I relate to money as a spiritual business? Guys, we really got to heal our issues with money. I'm going through that work. I did 2 years working privately with some people to do this because, to be honest, it was a thing that I was feeling a lot of shame and guilt around, which most of us do. Most of us have a lot of shame and guilt around money, or wanting to make more money, or wanting to even just be resourced to buy a new car or buy clothing. There's so much shame around that. And as spiritual businesses, a lot of times we feel that money is lower. It's not necessarily something that we should really have. It's corrupted. We have a lot of beliefs and ideas around money. So this is the question. I feel like I run my business as a spiritual practice. I rarely make decisions based on money. I did in the beginning. I'm trying to get out of material mindset and see everything as energy and how it flows. I'm curious how you see that in your business. I don't know if you're planning on addressing this type of thing. Yes. Yes. So thank you so much for this question. Money is energy. And I think that if you're able to understand the logistics of how to just manage resources, if you have accounting software or something you're doing, that's really important to understand the ins and out of just that, like on a third dimensional, black and white, logical level. Okay. But then it comes time for you to understand your own energy, how it's flowing, how it's blocked, how it relates to other people, how it relates to your worth, because energy and money are so intertwined that you may have lower energy a particular month because you're going through something, or you're shifting, or you're having a great healing experience as a healer, going through your own work, and you may have less clients that month. There is always going to be ebbs and flows to your own personal energy. Even as women, when we're going through our cycling, we have these ebbs and flows of energy. So why not would there be ebbs and flows of cash or physical resources? And it's really interesting when you start to understand money from a perspective of energy. We look at things for our business particularly. I look at, it's so funny. I had one of my people a long time ago said that I pay attention too much to the numbers. And I actually didn't. It's funny. She perceived it that way, but I actually feel it. I feel if there is energy that's stuck in somewhere in either a practitioner and then I get called as an intuitive leader, as a light leader to go maybe work with them or see what's going on. And then I notice their schedule's not as full, or something's going on with them personally. So I noticed that being sounds like an energy drain where they're not feeling their value or their worth or whatever's going on, and then was able to assist them. And then they're able to fill their book again, or whatever's going on. Maybe they needed time off because they were burned out, whatever it was, to really fix the hole of the energy leakage. Or if we had an abundance of energy, a flow of, even if there wasn't a whole lot of clientele, maybe necessarily, but the energy felt full to me. I know it sounds weird, but I think you're getting this, right? I would definitely look at, of course, the logistics. Are we able to buy something right now? But it felt like the right time to make a purchase, or maybe to hold back on buying more items for our boutique, because we do have retail sales here as well. So those are things that I've very much intuitively flowed with. But also, when it comes to money and finances, when you, again, know what you offer and you're able to fully express your own unique self in that modality, I sure hope that you can, of course, meet the needs that you need financially. And I usually recommend for people to ask the question, how many people do you want to see a week, first of all? How much energy do you want to be putting into your job? Now, if you're doing it full time, maybe you're seeing 20, 30 people a week, whatever it is, whatever number is right for you. I don't think there's a wrong number. I think there is more of when the logistics come into it, it's like, okay, I want to see 10 people a week. Well, how much money do I need to make to be able to do that? Okay, well, then we're going to shoot for this much per hour, because I know I'm worth it. I've done the work. I've done the healing. I am knowledgeable. I have accurate readings, or I have effective treatments, and people come back and, there's a history, and there's practical, skillful experience that happens over time that you can really build up, that knowing that that's what you're worth and your value. And as long as you're really creating an income that supports what you need, that's all that really matters. And even if you are able to trust the universe and flow with it and say, this is how much I need to make, and ask for that, and if you know your worth and your value, You, of course, need to make some action steps to go in that direction, but being open to it coming in any maybe direction, because it may be a matter of you see now 6 clients a week, and then maybe you're doing some sort of education or teaching on the side, or you have something else that's passive income or whatever that is. But I think the biggest thing that we need to do when it comes to running our business like a spiritual practice is understanding any of the dark corners of our psyche where we may have issues around money, where we feel money is dirty or it's not something that we need as spiritual people. There's no wrong about it, but if you are telling yourself a story that's limiting how much income and resources you could have coming in, that really can potentially limit what you could do for the world. And I imagine if all of you out there who are really good people had all the resources that you needed, you'd be helping nonprofit organizations. You'd be doing so much stuff with that money, and maybe helping yourself a little bit and doing some self-care treatments more for yourself, right? So I don't think that, I think that we as healers often shy away from it instead of really getting real with it, because that the world would completely change tomorrow if every healer out there who has a big heart had income. Because one thing would happen is they wouldn't care about it enough and they'd give it all away, and then they'd be poor the next day. Or they know what their value is. They know what they need to live. They know what they need for their own life happiness, their joy, the play, because they let go of this baggage. If you're a light leader, you let go of this baggage. I don't need to help save the world, but I am here to help enjoy the world and do my healing work along that journey. And you'd be able to really have a good relationship with money. Money and intimacy are very, very intertwined. So intimacy, not necessarily sexually, but as well, but intimacy with other people. So if you have issues with community and issues with other people, other women or men or other businesses, business trauma, other things like that, it can really affect your income and your flow. And I think this lack attack and this competition that we can sometimes get stuck in really does cut off the energy flow. If we're holding on too much, we're not in flow. If we're giving away too much, we're not in flow. We're imbalanced in the way that we're giving and receiving energy, which of course then equates to money. It does show up as money. That's a whole course there, guys. It's a really fun topic. And I feel more passionate about that than ever, because I just see so much issues with us not talking about it in our spiritual communities and avoiding it, or feeling like it's something that we don't even want to touch with a 10-foot pole. And we really need to talk about it. We need to talk about it because there is a black and white logistical issue. If you have 2 Starbucks that open up on the same street, if it's not busy enough, one of those Starbucks is going to close down. That's the black and white, practical, third-dimensional reality. If you have 2 Reiki healers on the same street, chances are they're not going to close down, because every Reiki healer is a different personality and a different energy signature. They're going to attract different people. There's plenty for everyone. Now, if you have 2 maybe particular retail sales, maybe they sell supplements or something, like they sell very similar products or in the same niche on the same street, that's an issue where, in my opinion, as a business, you could probably do well if you have a different niche than that person, and if you are able to kind of connect back and forth and say, we sell these type of supplements, you sell this, let's support each other. That's a infinite mindset versus a competition mindset. But if you have 2 people that are selling exactly the same products, they're right next to each other, and they don't have anything unique as far as their personal touch or energy signature to the personal services, then that creates an issue, a black and white third-dimensional issue of oversaturation of the market. And this is what happened in the yoga studio industry. So many people, to keep a yoga studio opened, they need to sell yoga teacher training, because sometimes with just yoga classes alone, they couldn't keep the yoga studios open. So if you have certain people go through yoga teacher training, you can keep the yoga studio open, because it's like $5,000 to $10,000 per person to go through the training. But then everyone goes through the training, and then everyone opens their yoga studio. And then there's so many yoga studios and not enough people that want to do it. A lot of people want to do it now, but they're doing it in churches. They're doing it everywhere. So COVID shut down a lot of studios, of course, and gyms as well. But this is before COVID that we were having the issue of oversaturation. And that's not from a state of fear. That's not from a state of just logistical business stuff. Like, you could have a yoga studio that's very niche, where it's like, we do hard rock workouts for men only, or we have a yoga studio that's just for pregnant women only, or something. I know that wouldn't necessarily work. There's not enough of a market for it, but you could definitely flavor your business that would make it work. But you have to understand, we have to get real with boundaries as business owners, and especially spiritual business owners, of look at our niche, look at the market for what's out there. How many people want something we want? Because I don't want us to set ourselves up for failure. If we have pipe dream and we're like, we're going to do all these things, but we don't actually look at the third dimensional reality of it. Because that's where we learn that it doesn't matter what you want to do. You don't have to ask the how. The universe will take care of it for you. Well, if you keep running into all these situations where the universe isn't taking care of it for you, chances are you're having some blocks in the law of attraction and maybe in just your energy and how you are interacting with the law of creation yourself. And of course, I have a class on that. Or you're not actually looking at the black and white third dimensional issues when it comes to business. And I'm sorry, that's a big thing. And a lot of people get really riled up about that. I'm like, it's a really, really important thing. Are there any other questions? That's a really good question, Veda. So she said, I still really struggle with being around negative energy. I go out of my way not to be around it. With being a business owner, I really don't want to do any business with them. Is it something I should work on, or is it okay to stay away? I love this question very, very much. Oh, Corby, can you define transferable skills for me? And then I'll get to that. That's a potentially sounds good, but I want to make sure I know what you're talking about there for sure. So Veda, when you're struggling about reading about negative energy. So first of all, it's really good to redefine and shift what negative energy means. Let's look at it from a curious perspective of what do you define as negative energy? Do you feel a heaviness? Does your energy feel drained? Does it feel chaotic? Because everyone's different negative energy is going to feel different to us. So if we can identify, it feels thick, it feels dark, what does it feel like to you? And explore it and be curious, like, why is it feeling heavy? Why is it feeling that way? And ask yourself, because if we inquire as a light leader, what's going on? What is it about that person's energy that bothers us? That's when we can look into the darkest shadows of our psyche. When we don't do that, when we don't look at the dark sides of ourselves, our past, or other people, and we run away from it and we want to sage it all away and Reiki it all away because we don't like the way it feels, that's when we can potentially get into territory where we're avoiding our own healing lessons. Not always. There's absolutely circumstances where you just don't really want to work with that you don't have a preference for that particular client energy signature. So I think we can take away the polarization and judging, or the word judging, because we have healers don't like to be judged either. It doesn't feel good, right? Especially if you're energy sensitive. So we can look at it more of a curious perspective of, what does that feel like? I don't know if I really like that. That's not my preference. So I'm going to have a boundary with it. But it's good to ask why you don't have a preference for it, because it may be a trigger. I always say, trust your triggers. If there's something that needs to be healed or looked at, it might come up. It might be an old person, a person from, it might remind you of a situation in the past that you're still, holding on to, or it might be just a lesson for you to hold a boundary. So that's, of course, really important. So what Corby means by transferable skills, she said, means looking inside at what you're truly good at and seeing if it can inform your practice. Yes, absolutely, positively. I love that so much, Corby. So that's absolutely what I see with certain people, especially if they have psychic gifts. Like, I know one person that I'm like, she'll be very good at forensic stuff because she's so organized, and the way her gift comes out is specifically in that genre. So if you really feel called, you have a natural gift with animals, chances are you may be better and maybe more inclined to work better with animals as an animal healer or a psychic, or even just a veterinarian if you're moving more out of the spiritual based practices, but more into like the physical aspect of things. So really, I like what you said, Corby, because sometimes we mimic other people where we feel like we're supposed to be like this person or that person. Part of your healing journey as a healer is looking at why you've been wounded. What called you to the healing practice? Because what called you to the healing practice and is going to eventually help you step into light leadership, where you realize this is what I need to heal, and I'm going to heal it through myself. And then I'll ultimately will attract people that will need that healing as well. And they'll ultimately just come to me. And if you have a natural skill set for being maybe a librarian, you may be a person in your healing profession that reads a lot of books, or you're able to give a lot of information that you just retain from books as well. And you might get a lot more just education that you can share in that way. So that makes sense. And Corby absolutely is really good with that past life stuff because she has a historical context. That makes sense. One of the things I don't do animals, right? I read people's animals, they come through, but I have a hard time with it because I'm not well versed in dog and cat breeds. So sometimes they come through, and because I don't have that knowledge or skill set of like, this dog looks like white, it's short hair, and if I had more education on that, I would definitely be better skilled at that. Hope that makes sense. Yes. So for you guys, for the final, just to wrap everything up, if you want to consult with me, please give me a call. I feel that we as healers we really got to step up. And not necessarily need to be a light leader, but we need to step up and really do more healing work ourselves. We need to understand what our boundaries is and our value is so that we can not burn out, so we can continue to help the world. And if you feel called on a deeper level to really be more balanced in the way that you're carrying your energy, be grounded as well as spiritually connected, I encourage you to check out some of the offerings that I have. If you want to consult with me and it's something that's not a good fit, I absolutely will refer you to someone else. One of the things that I know for myself as a light leader is I don't really pull energy from people. I'd have no desire anymore to go out and sell myself and try to get people hooked and come and see me as a reader or whatever. That it's not desirable at all. I know through my own journey that people who need to come see me will come see me. And people who are called to work with my programs and my stuff will come work with me. It's a waste of energy to, in my own perspective, I value myself enough and I value my energy to not waste it barking up the wrong tree. If I get a sense that we're a good fit, I will absolutely help you. I also encourage people, if they really are not sure if they want to go a little bit deeper, I have a 2-week program. If you have no resources, you can apply for free with this program, Mind Body Detox. I have a 2-week version of it that's not the full 8 weeks that I really was called to give away this last year for people who couldn't afford it because people really need something. And usually what happens is they have either inner saboteur or negativity or procrastination or boundaries or whatever it is that's toxic in their life that's really holding them back. And they're not able to step into the full actualization of themselves as a healer or as a mother or as a partner or in their own business or whatever it is. So this doesn't apply if you're just a healer. If you run a business that you sell cars or something like that, like I don't help just people who are healers, but it's something that your energy signature and who you are is a reflection of your business, is a reflection of your relationships, it's a reflection of your health. And all those things can be addressed in some of the work that I do. And then the other thing would be, if you are having any other questions, please feel free to follow the link here. I'm going to just send a link in the chat. And if someone wants to ask a question, I have a podcast, of course, that I share information on, so I can always answer your questions there. And I think that at this time we need I want to give away as much content as I can because a lot of times people try to get in with me and I'm booked out. And I know it's really challenging. And I always feel and trust I'm supposed to work with who I work with. But some of this information can just be shared via my podcast. I think that will be very helpful for all of you. So there's that. If you have that form, and it's the form that you guys sent to ask questions today, I can, of course, still take those questions and I can use them later on the podcast. So thank you guys so much. I'll send you a link to the podcast as well. I should probably do that. So you guys have information on it, right? It's called the Mind Body Detox Podcast. Of course, same name as my program. And that program, of course, was created for me. I was 260 pounds, living in a trailer with a drug dealer baby daddy. For serious. Working third shift at Sheetz. It's a gas station here in South Central Pennsylvania. Had no self-esteem, had no friends. very spiritually connected, but of course was drugged up on those medications that shut down my gifts. And I just really had a complete transformation in my life because I really didn't have any self-worth. I didn't have any boundaries. I wasn't able to say no. I never knew I was going to have a business. I just wanted to work out of a room in this building, and all of a sudden people came out of nowhere and were like, "Can I work here?" So it's funny. I didn't ever see myself as a leader. I was always very shy, and I had to, of course, go push past all these fears, become a public speaker. I had to take classes. There's so many things I had to do. I mean, the first video I ever made, I was crying for like 2 hours on the video. Like, it didn't get published, but I was like, I can't do this. I'm so insecure. I honestly, if you guys are out there in any part of your journey, I want to share that because I feel like so many people see business owners or people who are who you perceive are self-actualized or enlightened. I had one client say to me years ago, like, I can't wait till I'm enlightened like you. And I was like, and then this just comes out, my light leadership goes, I'm not a guru. Don't look at me. I'm the person to help facilitate your healing. A light leader will help facilitate other people to find their own path in their healing, and they will never take credit necessarily. They'll take credit for facilitating the healing, but we don't do the work. We know that the people who are really doing the healing, you're doing your own healing. We're just facilitating the information or whatever it is that you need to heal. So yeah, Corby, awesome. Thank you so much for being here tonight too. I love and respect you so much, and everyone who's here too, Nick and Veda and Tiffany. You guys are the reason. I mean, I find it really interesting that the people who came tonight, because when I see you guys, I see you as really dedicated to really becoming better people and better spirits and really projecting more of that actualized self into the world. And we need you. We need you guys doing your thing, and the world becomes a better place as you actualize and your energy shifts the people around you, not even having to do anything. So without further ado, we're going to shut this thing down at 1 hour and 26 minutes and 12 seconds. So that was a long one, but thank you guys for joining me. Again, if you want more information about me, you're not sure who I am, go ahead and check out the website at fireflyhollowwellness.com. I am Kara Lovehart, Integrative Intuitive Medium, and also a holistic life coach for the Mind Body Detox program. And I do free coaching calls, so if you're interested in that consultation, just let me know. All right. Have a wonderful night, everyone. Bye-bye.